Hi, honey.
Hey, baby.
Welcome back to our podcast.
I was so happy to be here.
Are you?
I've been looking forward to this all week. I had so much fun last week, and I'm very, very happy to be back.
Me too. Have you put any thought into the name?
I haven't, although you said something today that made me think about a title, so I'm going to see if it comes up during the course of the conversation.
Maybe we will think it over.
You gave me a little bit of an idea earlier. It was something I was already kind of playing with, and I figure if it comes up during the conversation, then I'd be happy to mention it, but I'm going to hold off.
All right.
Like that.
All right. Well, no, I want it. So it's Super Bowl Sunday,
Yes, it is.
and we're here in a studio
Yeah.
instead of, what time is kickoff? In like 2 hours?
It's going to be in like 2 hours, and we have a lot of work to do between now and then, and it's certainly going to spill into the Super Bowl. So we are going to go and hang out with some friends here in a little bit, go to their house and watch some of the game, but it certainly isn't the Super Bowl Sundays that you may have had in the past.
Yeah, definitely not a priority. Not anymore for us.
Can't be.
No. And it is weird to think about, like, how we have changed that for ourselves in, like, the past few years. Like, we had, like, our fantasy football leagues. Saturday would be college game day. Sunday we'd be, like, ready to, like, watch football and be out running around.
Yeah. Very big part of our life for a little while there.
Yeah.
Both college football and NFL.
Yeah.
For sure. But it's kind of become less and less so, not only because we've had to prioritize other things over it, but I just think in general I found it less and less interesting. I found it to be, quite frankly, more of like a waste of time, and something that the more I watch, the more difficult it is to like become engaged with, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes more relevant like on a day like today, like everybody else is so amped for it. And I'm like, man, just a few years ago, I would have been really amped for this too. And you would have plans and parties and
Making food and getting ready and
And like now it's kind of like it's here in 2 hours, and I'm like, I'll watch it if I watch it.
Yeah.
And I kind of don't know anything about like what's actually happening aside from Taylor Swift being there and Usher being the halftime show. And obviously I know that it's the Chiefs and the 49ers, but that's like literally the extent.
I know. I don't even know who the 49ers quarterback is.
Shout out, I could tell you.
Right?
Yeah.
And Mahomes is still at Chiefs.
I'm assuming so, yeah. last time I checked.
Sure. He's under contract there. But yeah, I kind of course, I like loved like that time when we did watch football and like go and like do all of, being with friends and doing that. But I just also have other priorities at this point.
I kind of, at this point, view it as a distraction, as I view most things that the majority of society finds compelling. I think it's a brainwash operation.
Oh, gosh. Why do you think it's a brainwash operation?
I think it's pretty apparent because everybody's brainwashed about it, and it has zero effect on your actual life or outcome. I know that that's like maybe a harsh take, but
That is a very harsh take.
it is what it is. That's my take.
That's your take.
Ooh.
Maybe we should call this podcast Jared's Take.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. So I think for this topic, or for this podcast, our topic should be kind of where we left off with the last episode that we kind of discussed. We're out of the lease with the gym,
Yep.
and kind of like what our next move is, and what's our next big decision.
Yes.
And I think it all starts when you went to Colts Kool-Aid ceremony, whatever you want to call it.
I recently initiated into a cult, the cult of Tony Robbins, who gave me all the answers that I needed, going through a pretty hard time over the last couple months. I was skeptical, but now I'm a 100% convert, and I have nothing but amazing things to say about the big guy.
Yes, the big guy.
The big guy, Tony Robbins. I'm definitely a shill for him at this point, without a doubt. I've been telling everybody over the last 3 months about how much that moment impacted me, how much that event impacted me. But it has actually made like a major, helped make a major decision in terms of where we're going and what we're prioritizing in our life, and what the next like big move is for us.
Yeah.
That might seem pretty like I wouldn't even say like risky, but pretty bold and like kind of insane, all things considered, or maybe even like sad to some extent.
Yeah, probably. Scary.
But
Lots of ways you can describe it.
I guess the way you could put it is we live in our house in East Austin.
I think you're going. Let's pull back.
Okay.
Pull back. I think start with kind of building up.
Okay. Sure.
To, and also explain, like, you went to Unleash the Power Within.
Yes.
How it's called.
Yeah, okay. Let's start.
So start that at that
Take
point.
a few steps back. So, obviously, this is going back to middle of November, or middle of October, late November, or sorry, middle of October, late October. Was when we realized that we had to get out of the lease for the gym, and I was having that conversation initially with my landlord and speaking with my realtor and my attorney and trying to figure out exactly what we were going to do with that process, or like just initiating the steps of terminating the lease. And obviously with that, a lot of things were in turmoil in terms of what I was expecting from a career perspective. Like, I was expecting to have a gym in a few months, and now we were going to be simply not having a gym as I was leaving my job.
Exactly.
So I was leaving my career expecting to have a gym, and there is now no gym. Then there was also the fact that obviously the business model that I had was based on a particular space, a particular square footage, a particular type of build out, and that was apparently not in the cards anymore. Because even if we found a different place, the build out cost was still going to be the same. So that obviously had to get completely thrown out the window. So it means I had to figure out a whole new business model, essentially. And I was racking my brain for weeks trying to figure out what the business model for that.
Your brain, my brain, our friend's brains.
Yeah, I was like, I would say again, there's few times where I feel like I'm in a fog, or things are like my vision is blurry in terms of what I see as a next step, or when I get even frustrated, or when I get worked up, or I'm not able to like work through a particular problem. Very, very rare. And this was certainly a time where, because there was so much turmoil, I was living, as I call it, in a cloud of disarray.
Yeah.
I think most people spend most of their life in a cloud of disarray. And I am not immune to it whatsoever. And this was a moment when I was living in like a thunderstorm of disarray for a few weeks. And maybe I don't know if I'm sure that people close to me, they saw it because I was being pretty open about it, and I was being pretty straightforward as far as like what specifically was happening and what was going through my mind, as you mentioned. But I was a lot more, I would say, frantic than I normally am, and far more in my head than I normally am.
Yeah, like you couldn't see, and like for me, and normally like you are so, you see things so clearly, then like everything, like your steps, like you take the proper steps to get like from point A to point B to C, like you just know like step by step. And for like those couple weeks of like me having to be like, this is what you need to do next. Like I had to like try to pull you out of your thunderstorm.
Well, I was
a lot.
At this point, I was 2 months away from leaving my job, and I had no idea what the plan was after that. We do have two homes. Again, one home in East Austin that we live in. We have another home that we rent out. At the same time, we were having issues with the tenant in that house, and late payment of the rent. So that was another issue that was kind of like icing on the cake in terms of everything else. And we had to figure out, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, like in 2 months, like what am I doing then? I'm not going to be able to do the same gym. So how do I make a gym work? That's kind of the question that I kept asking myself, is how do I make a different type of gym work? What is the next step in getting a gym up and running? Because obviously this plan wasn't it.
And if we don't have the gym up and running, how are we paying mortgages?
Yes.
How are we like making our life even possible?
How are we maintaining this, like even a remotely the quality of life that we expect? So that is really where my mind was for a few weeks. And luckily I had a buddy who is a very big fan of Tony Robbins. I remember back in like, this is probably
partnership.
Well, hold on. Back in 2016, maybe 2016, 2017, somewhere in that range, he came over and he showed us the Tony Robbins documentary on Netflix. I remember remember really enjoying it. and thinking that it was not only like a great documentary, but like Tony Robbins was the man. The entire documentary and his whole process seemed like very compelling to me. I understood it. But again, I'm a guy who I don't think, at least I had very many self-limiting beliefs, and I do gratefulness practices, and I do meditate, and I do manifest and all that stuff. So I never really felt that was something that I needed. But he, asked me over the years, you should come to a Tony Robbins event. You should come to a Tony Robbins event. I kept pushing him off.
I don't need it. I'm good.
I don't need it. A, I don't need it. I'm good. B, like, I don't know, seems kind of weird.
Uh-huh.
Of course.
For sure. A lot of people, when they hear the name Tony Robbins, they're like,
of course.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins.
I mean, I didn't have really negative opinion of him, but I kind of had like seems like a little like,
yeah, for sure.
Kooky, self-help, whatever. And then the other thing is just simply like from a time commitment, it's like almost a week long, and it costs money and you have to travel and all that. So for those reasons alone, it was like not worth it for me to make an effort. And then I remember specifically 2 years ago, we were at a pool party, and he asked me again to come that fall. This was like in the summer of 2022, maybe. He was asking me to come that fall. And I was like, listen, man, I'm going to come. I promise you I will come to one of these events. It's not going to be this year. And I told him, like, I do promise you I will make it to an event here soon.
Were we thinking, was Jim in the idea at that point?
That was
that's early.
Really early. Where like I knew that was the plan, but like something like that was the plan, but
getting out of what you were doing.
It was really early stages of that. So finally, this year, he got in my ear, and he said, it's in Dallas, number one, so it's pretty close. So not, it's not like I have to travel across the country for it, or go too far out of my way, or like, pay for a flight or anything like that. He was getting a house with like, I don't know, 15 other people. We're all going to go up there. We were going to stay in a house.
Guys.
There was a woman.
Oh yeah, there was, but that's a lot of men in one house. Yeah. A whole frat house.
Well, whatever. It was like, it was like a little frat house room. It was great. So he had the house, he had the accommodations. He basically made it as simple as possible. Mm-hmm. And because it was in November and I was leaving my job in December, I was like, hey, okay, I guess if there's ever a time when maybe something like this would be beneficial, now is it. It makes sense. But I was still very skeptical, and I was still going in. However, I did say, like, if I'm doing it right. I'm not going to, try to be like Mr. Cool Guy who's not going to participate, or I'm going to try to, like, sit there with my arms folded the whole time and, like, be a bad energy. And the thing of, like, if I'm doing it, I'm going all in. So I went, leading up to it, I had no idea what to expect. But let me tell you, these Tony Robbins events are a marathon. And, like, this is, like, the entry-level version into these events. It's 4 days. It's minimum 12 hours a day. I think most of the days are 14 or 15 hours. They don't tell you when it starts. So, like, you don't know until you're leaving at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning what time you need to be back the next morning. It's all designed to, like, throw you way off. It's at the, I don't know, some convention center in Dallas. There's 15,000 people in the room. And then there's, like, people remote as well. And you immediately show up, and, like, it's kind of pandemonium. Mm-hmm. Tony Robbins' crowd is it's an interesting crowd. Like, there's no doubt about that. It is an eclectic mix of people. Some of them incredibly successful. Some of them really trying to figure it out. Some people who are, like, overly positive, and then some people who you could just tell, like, are just struggling, maybe lost souls, something like that. It really spans the gamut. There was tons of hot chicks there. That's another thing I remember. A lot
looking
of
for a hot guy.
I remember what?
I said they're looking for a hot guy.
I guess so.
How are the guy selections?
I couldn't tell you. I just know I saw a lot of yoga pants, for sure. And so again, like, I'm really coming in. They don't let you eat. By the way, you don't get out to, like, eat. They don't really give you breaks. You might get maybe of that 14-hour day, like, maybe you get, like, an hour break, like, total, like.
And then when you got there, I remember, like, y'all drove in, and then I was at work, and you had texted me, like, oh, we just got here, we're gonna go, like, get, like, you're stand in line to, like, get whatever you need, like, your pass or whatever. And then I like worked, and then I like called you, and you're like, yeah, we're still standing
Yeah, it was
in
like a
line.
3-hour like registration line the night before too, which was like an adventure in and of itself. Because again, there's like 15,000 people in the room. You're in a line with 15,000 people. It's
Yeah.
kind of wild. So you show up first day, and I walk in. As I'm walking in, or as I should say, as the event is starting, and Tony Robbins comes out. Within 10 minutes, I texted you,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, Tony Robbins is the absolute man. I was like, Tony Robbins is the shit. This guy is dope.
And I was like, he's up. He's
Yeah.
up. Hold on. It's been like
So-
20 minutes.
So I'm skeptical, but this guy is such a commanding speaker, such a commanding speaker, and so powerful, and has such conviction, and the things he's saying they're just so easy to understand, to make sense of, and to like apply to yourself, that you can't help but listen.
Yeah. He like makes it very easy for people of
Any like stratus, any intellectual intellectual class, whatever you want to call it, can understand what this guy is saying and make sense of it. Again, apply it to themselves. Unbelievable. So I'm immediately blown away by him. I'm like, this guy is the dude. He's also like, if you don't know, he's like 6'8". They say that his bone density is better than like anybody else. It's kind of like Kim Jong-un-ish, like where they make absurd claims where like he burns the equivalent of 2 marathons in a day of doing UPW.
So I read his, after you came back from this, I started reading some of his books. I read Life Force, and they like did like research studies on him. I can't remember what group it was, but they like watched him during, maybe it was UPW or Date with Destiny, I can't remember, but it's like when he's on stage, like it's they equivalent like how many marathons he does, his like resting heart rate, his VO2 max, like all these things they like worked up on him. And yes, he is like a superhero.
He's basically a superhero, at least according to Tony Robbins.
Yeah,
doctors.
exactly.
But they also like they even tell a story about like him golfing, and like it's not too far away from like the Kim Jong-un, like he's shot like 9 hole-in-ones his first time playing golf.
Really?
Like that's the thing they say supposedly a thing they say in North Korea is that Kim Jong-un hit like 9 hole-in-ones the first time he played golf. And like they told a Tony Robbins story that's like not too far from that. So it's very dear leader in terms of the way they describe him. But again,
And that adds into the whole idea when you say like, oh, I went to a Tony Robbins event, why people be like, oh, okay. Because it's...
And like, true or false, the fact that he's presenting it to 15,000 people as like fact, as like, and it's like it's like a subtle flex that he the way he presents it is all like subtle flex.
Oh yeah, everything. He's like, oh, when I was in my home in West Palm Beach, or when I was on my island like off of Fiji.
He's like, so what? He'll be like, so when we bought the castle. Oh, because by the way, we have this oceanfront castle. He's like subtle flex king, and like I just love that. Like I'm obsessed with it. And again, he makes you just can't not listen to him. And what I'll say is like the 4 days that you're there, 14 hours a day, I found my mind wandering maybe twice, maybe 3 times, less than a minute each time. I was locked in, start to finish, because he's so compelling. And so like obviously the magnetism was there immediately. And the whole event is pretty wild to the extent that it starts with, you can't change your mind until you change your body, and like the way your posture, the way you hold yourself, the way you position yourself, and the way you move your body, that creates changes in your physiology, which changes your emotions and your mood. And there's a lot to be said for that. It's obviously very, very true. So a lot of the event is moving your body. There's tons of jumping around. There's tons of dancing and lights, and it's like almost like a rave, like to some extent, or like a festival kind of, where people are dancing in their seats, jumping, screaming, moving their arms, like going absolutely batshit, like it's like lunacy in there.
You sent me videos when I was home, and I was like, what is Jared at?
And you get this sense that it's 100% a cult.
Oh, for
There's
sure.
no doubt about it. Like it just is, and you can't look at that and look at a cult and like see any difference between the two. And I'm there watching all of these people do exactly what Tony Robbins says to do, when he says to do it. There's dancing, there's making your move, there's screaming, there's laughing, there's like they the whole point is like that he can change your state of emotion in an instant. And he tells you at the beginning of the weekend that that he is going to condition you over the course of the week. Which conditioning is not all that different from brainwashing, which is not all that different from like Inception, more or less. And he does that literally over the course of the weekend, brainwashes you, conditions you, whatever you want to call it, to change your state in an instant. And I'm not going to go into, like, I guess, every single detail of how he does that. I would recommend going to a UPW and seeing for yourself, because it is honestly brilliant, genius, artistry to an extent that I've never witnessed before. I've never been a part of before.
And I'm reading a second book right now, or second book of his right now. And it's, again, he like really lays everything out very easily, that like he's basically saying like, you can do this, you can achieve this if you do this, this, and this. He really spells it out for you.
Let's not turn this into a commercial for Tony Robbins. I know I started by telling everybody to go to a UPW, but this is quickly becoming like a
sponsored by.
Please join us.
Yeah,
this is not sponsored by Tony Robbins. You make your own. You make your own best decisions, but this has had a huge impact on me in a pretty significant way that I could have never anticipated, literally ever. Yeah. So, getting back to the brainwashing, the conditioning, he tells you specifically, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to condition you over the course of the next few days. And he goes about doing that, again, masterfully. And everybody is doing all the things that he says to do. They're jumping when he says jump. They're dancing when he says dance. They're screaming when he says scream. They're literally crying when he says cry. And
did you cry?
No, I didn't. I didn't even come close. But that's kind of part of the story.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at all these people. I'm going, these people are fucking crazy. These people are out of their mind. Meanwhile, I'm doing all the same things that those people are doing, because I said I was going to play all out, and I was playing all out. So I am looking at all these people like they're nuts for doing all the things that Tony Robbins is telling them to do. Meanwhile, I am one of these 15,000 people doing all those same things. I am looking at it from like a third-party perspective, going, man, all these people are crazy. I'm just doing it because I'm trying to be a part of this thing. And I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to, like, play by the rules.
And get answers.
And the answers, again, that I went to Tony Robbins looking for was, how do I make a gym work?
Yep.
So as I'm going through this whole process, I'm going, okay, let me get to my self-limiting beliefs of why I might not be able to market a gym effectively and get as many members in here paying the prices that I need. What are the prices that I need to charge? How many members should I expect? How do I market it right? How do I brand myself right? Those are not the questions. No, spoiler alert. The questions I was asking going into Tony Robbins were the absolute wrong questions.
For sure.
Because it was head shit. It was head shit, logical, trying to like make sense and force something that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. And then like, so you'd be going to this like thing all day, trekking it with me throughout the day, like just, text, like, on a brave, whatever. And then, then you at Liver King.
Oh yeah, Liver King there too, so that was kind of tight.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a mini idol for me for sure.
But then like at night you'd call me, it's like midnight, 1 a.m. I'm like asleep, and you're like, we're just getting home, I'm gonna shower, we're going to bed. And you would say like, it's good and all, but like, I still don't know. Yep. Like, I'm not getting the answers. And I'm like, it will come to you. Like, I was just like, something will come.
And the thing is, the whole point of the whole thing is he's manipulating people's emotions. And the point of manipulating the emotion is to get a reaction out of them that they can leverage to then change. And like, I don't think that there's anything unethical about that. He tells you exactly what he's going to do to you. He obviously doesn't tell you exactly how he's doing it as it's being done. But if you have like any background in psychology or anything like that, it becomes, apparent as you're kind of like viewing it. And everybody else is emotional. They're not just pretending to be emotional. I was sitting there doing these things, screaming and not necessarily crying, but like thinking of like, sad things or thinking of things that made me grateful. And like, think of things that make me grateful genuinely did make me grateful. But the other things, like, it's not easy for me to just like get sad.
Yeah.
It's not easy for me to just like get angry or like I think that I wasn't feeling that way. I was pretending to feel that way, but it looked to me like everybody else in the crowd was actually feeling those things. So I was kind of like, everybody else is really getting a lot out of this. And I'm not saying that I'm not getting anything out of it. I'm getting more out of it learning from what Tony is doing.
I'm watching him.
And watching him than I am like anything about myself. Because I'm trying to figure out what I'm supposed to charge for a gym membership over here. Or how many square feet I'm supposed to have for a gym. And Tony's not helping me with these things.
Yeah, what equipment do I need?
Yeah, how much should I spend on equipment? Tony, what am I paying for here? You're supposed to be my gym consultant.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I was thinking about it, because I'm dumb. So, at least I was dumb at that time, because I was in a cloud of disarray. So, I would reach out to her, and everybody's also having these like breakthroughs. And then at the end of the third day, they did this very intense thing that, and I'm not going to go into all the details, but they turn out the lights. All the kids go in a different room because this thing is too scary. Tony,
that's like, and there are children at this event.
Yeah,
when you told me this, I was like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Like, children went to this event.
I mean, there's not a ton, but there's
but
enough.
still, like, it's just an interesting.
And they get the kids out of the room. They do this like kind of scary thing where 15,000 people are in a dark room with Tony using his voice, basically like Satan, scaring everybody out of their like self-limiting beliefs that you wrote down earlier. And everybody else, it sounds like you're literally burning in hell, because the wretched screams and like the screeching and the crying and like the pain that you heard from the people in this room like cannot be faked.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about the self-limiting beliefs that I had written down. And I'm like, this is like, I don't even like necessarily believe these things that I wrote down. Like, I'm kind of writing these things down because like I feel like I'm supposed to, but like I know these things aren't real.
Yeah.
Like, one of them was like, people don't like me. And I'm like, I know this. I know that's not true. Like, there might be some people, but like generally people like me, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so it was really hard for me to like feel the same like torture that clearly a lot of other people in this room are feeling, because it was intense. And we went out to dinner that night. I actually, interestingly enough, after that, I had the first beer that I've had in like 7 years.
That's right.
I haven't drank a beer in 7 years, and I went out to get fajitas and I had a Dos Equis. So like, obviously something was let loose that day.
Unleashed.
Something was unleashed. Yeah, there was a power within me that must have been unleashed of some sort. The power, at least, to chug a Dos Equis.
You like texting, you're like, I'm drinking a beer right now, and I was like, what did Tony Robbins do?
Obviously, like something had happened to some extent, but like it just wasn't. I was like, man, everybody else is having these breakthroughs. I just kept saying, I have more questions than I have answers. Like, I kept saying, like, there's more questions that this is putting me through than answers. And
you like texted me that on the way home. You're like, we're like, I don't know what.
And as the weekend's going on, I'm not feeling really like, I guess, like a sense of relief at all. I'm only feeling like an increased tension of like, what the fuck am I gonna do? How am I gonna make this work? And like, also, why am I like not able to get out of this what like other people are? Like, what's wrong with me? Kind of.
Yeah, am I broken?
Yeah, well, I didn't necessarily think that, but I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. Because what's happening is, again, I'm sitting in this room, we're dancing in this room, I'm looking at everybody else, and I'm going like, these people are crazy. Look how emotional they are. And I'm thinking that I'm not emotional. I'm just not like expressing it the same way that everybody else is. In reality, what was happening was my thoughts were just ricocheting off my head. And meanwhile, I'm saying I'm not emotional. Then like, why can't I keep my thoughts straight? Yeah. Why are my thoughts all over the place? One moment I am actually feeling like I can dominate the world and that like everything is mine and I can do anything that I want to do, and then the next minute feel like nothing will ever, like literally minute to minute, bouncing back and forth like that. So like, I'm thinking I'm not getting emotional. I'm thinking he's not whipping me into a frenzy, but he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. Which, again, like, thinking of it that way, like, even to me is like embarrassing that I succumbed to that. Like, I really am embarrassed that I succumbed to that, but it's true. That's what happened. Because he was, the way I put it is like he was like shaking shit loose in a way that like was, it was necessary for me. So the biggest thing that came from the weekend, and I think like the biggest takeaway for me is at a certain point, and I just want to check the time here. Good, we got plenty of time. So, throughout the weekend, one of the huge topics and one of the biggest things that was the takeaway, is his idea of the 6 basic human needs. Everybody has these same 6 basic needs. 4 of them are the human needs. 2 of them are the more spiritual needs. And everybody has these needs, but everybody has them in different orders. They stack rank them in different orders. So I'll go through what the 6 needs are. The first one is certainty. The first human need is basically for security, to know that things are going to happen a certain way. To know, for example, that you have like a paycheck coming in, you know exactly what that paycheck is month over month, or, you know, every couple of weeks. Security in like a relationship, to know that you have somebody there by your side all the time. Security in a home, that you're not going to be moving every single month. It's just like the, you know, obviously like safety, stability, security is the first basic human need. The second one is uncertainty. And uncertainty is variety in life, fun. Obviously, if everything was the same every single day, that gets boring, and that's something that maybe some people can deal with, but other people can't. There's always a need for some level of uncertainty or variety, and obviously those two things are at odds with each other. But some people really love uncertainty, and that's why they're nomadic, or they do like absolutely like, you know, crazy, reckless, like extreme sports or something like that. Spontaneous. They don't plan, like they want that uncertainty. Totally valid. The third is prestige. Was it called prestige, or is it? I keep calling it prestige, but I think it may have been called something else actually. Recognition or something like that. Prestige or recognition. But essentially, it's the like idea of like being unique, standing out, having prestige, having status, being seen as like somebody of grandeur to some extent. And one of the things that Tony pointed out is that that's your number one value, or your number one need, that you'll never be happy, because no matter what, you'll never achieve enough prestige that you feel satisfied or satiated. There's always more.
You'll get to one point, you want more. You'll get to another point, you want more.
And for anybody,
always compare yourself to somebody else as well.
Exactly. There's always like more to attain. There's always like something to.
Someone's smarter, someone's richer, someone's this.
And you'll never be happy. And he tells a really crazy, unbelievable story about Robin Williams and his suicide to demonstrate that. I'm not going to go into all that, but it was pretty powerful. And the fourth one is love and connection, which is obviously the need for a partner. Some people, you know, say they want love and they're looking for a real connection, or a real, like meaningful, deep relationship. But in reality, what they end up doing is they end up settling for simply connection, which is just being, you know, friends or connected with somebody on a surface level and not really like getting to know each other or love one another, maybe because there's conflict there or because they're actually not that compatible.
But they don't know themselves enough to be able to connect to somebody in a different level.
So those are the 4 like human needs. Meaning those are more like those are primal needs. Meaning they're like the more like animalistic, like material self part of us. And then the 2 spiritual needs are growth, so continuous progress. And then the other one is contribution, giving back to others, showing love to others. And I would probably say, top basic human needs. And again, so everybody has those needs: security, certainty. Let me start over. Number 1, certainty. Number 2, uncertainty. 3, prestige or recognition. 4, love and connection. 5, growth. And then 6 is contribution, giving back. So everybody has all of those needs, but they are rated differently. Some people really value security. Some people really value uncertainty. Some people really value prestige, etc. And my 2 top ones, as we were going through this exercise, it was apparent to me. Number 1 was prestige, and number 2 was love and connection. I like a certain level of certainty. I like a certain level of uncertainty. Obviously, like I wouldn't have quit my job if I really love certainty that much. So those 2 things are probably, you know, on the list somewhere. And then growth has always been important to me, and contribution is something that's been increasingly important to me more recently. But prestige was clearly number one, and love and connection was most likely number two as far as I could identify. And again, as Tony said, prestige is a big no-no if that is your number one human need. And so to kind of cut to the chase as far as all that's concerned, that is a huge impact on the decision that I ended up making. The result that I came to as a result of UPW and the Tony Robbins event was I had to figure out something as far as that like prestige component went, because it was debilitating to a certain extent. And we'll talk more about why. But where was I?
So I say now, like, you come home.
Yeah.
And on your way home, actually, before you even get there, on your way home, you're like, hey, I'm going to come home. Just going to, get my stuff together, and then I want to go on a walk with you. And, debrief the weekend, talk everything through, and just try to figure out some of my questions and my answers and all of that. And you're like, I'm probably going to, because a lot of times on our walks, it will be just you just going, and sometimes you just really just
like this podcast.
Yeah. Not flight of ideas, but you just want to talk everything through. And you'll be like, how's your day? Or how was your day? I'm like, it was good. Real short and sweet.
I always try to buy you for information.
And if I have something to add, I will. But you have you're like, okay, these are my points. And these are our points we have to hit. And so you're like, I'm going to go on this walk, and I apologize ahead of time, but I am going to just ramble. Yeah. I'm like, all right, let's go.
Because, again, everybody else, I was in a house with 15 people. I was at an arena with 15,000 people, and everybody seemed to get a lot out of it. Yeah. I felt like I was the only one that was just filled with more, I hate to say it, but more anxiety and more stress and more uncertainty than I had previously coming into the event. And I was like, this thing ruined me. This threw my confidence out of whack, as opposed to helping me click and figure something out. So I texted you on the way home, and it was a really cloudy, shitty day. And it was a 3-hour drive, and I'm heading home. I'm in my head as much as I've really ever been. Ideas and thoughts that I can't even quite organize. I'm really good at organizing my thoughts typically, and making sense of them, and compartmentalizing them and structuring them in a way that I'm able to kind of break them down and make sense of them. And I just couldn't even organize them in the first place. I couldn't even put it into categories or understand where these thoughts should go, because I was so all over the place. And I said, I'm gonna come home, I have to go on a walk. I don't care if it's raining. I was like, it's raining today. I don't care if it's raining. We're going on a walk, because that's where I do my best thinking. And I'm just gonna start spewing, because I just need to get what's in my brain out of it, and I don't know how else to do it.
You're I need to talk it through and part the clouds.
Yes. So we got home, and I was anxious as hell. I'm I got home. I think I just dropped my bag. Maybe less than 5. I've been gone for almost a week, and within 5 minutes, I'm we're out. Yeah, probably. I'm sure I did. And then
here we go.
And then I was like, we're going. So we went for the walk, and it was a 2-hour walk.
Mm-hmm. And it didn't rain. It was just cloudy.
It didn't rain. It was just cloudy.
Interesting.
2 hours I was just talking about everything, a lot of what we just talked about here.
A lot more detail.
But in the first 5 minutes, every answer that I needed came spewing out of my mouth. Answers that I didn't even know were going to come out of my mouth in those first 5 minutes.
Well, I don't think you said anything. You're it just came to me, and I'm going to get to it at the end of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm for the 2 hours, I was like, okay, what's the answer? I remember kind of being what is he about to do on me?
Just getting on the walk, having you there, and just getting the first few thoughts out of my mouth. I saw the entire rest of the conversation line up in my head.
Yeah.
2 hours ahead of time. And I said, I know what the answer is. let me get there. I said, let me get there. And it took me 2 hours
Strap in.
to get to the answer. And the answer was that we do have 2 houses.
Uh-huh.
We do have 2 mortgages.
We have a gym lease.
We have, at that point, a gym lease that hopefully we knew that we were going to be able to get out of. And we have a certain lifestyle that we've lived up to this point. And in order to make a dream work, and in order for us to do what we want to do and accomplish what we want to accomplish, then sacrifices do actually have to be made. Mm-hmm. And those houses, to me, were nothing but a sign of prestige and a sign of telling the world, like, hey, I've been successful. Hey, I've made money. Hey, I've done a lot of, like, pretty cool things. Look at me. Look at what I've done. Like, nice, new, like, brand new, awesome, in my opinion, beautiful homes in East Austin.
Yeah.
And in order for us to go bigger and go better and make the life that we want for ourselves and foresee this vision through, we have to prune our tree in order to have it grow back bigger, stronger, and more vibrant. And I decided that it makes sense for us to sell our houses.
So
what that will do is not only do we have the money in the bank that we have now, but it's going to put more money in the bank for us. It's going to lower our cost of living. Maybe we go back to renting, for example. Mm-hmm. And of course, like lowering our, I guess you could say, like lowering our quality of life or lowering our like perceived status because we don't have houses, but it's also taking the pressure of 2 mortgages off of my shoulders. It's letting me be more
our shoulders.
It's letting me be more fearless day to day in terms of how I go about like building this business and building this brand and doing what I want to do and starting things, even like this podcast, for example. Mm-hmm. And it's the hard decision that has to be made that I didn't want to admit had to be made, to actually put into place exactly what we want to put into place and accomplish what we want to accomplish. And then as I was coming to that conclusion during this walk, that I feel like that cloud of disarray that was clouding everything and not letting me even like truly organize my thoughts in a meaningful or cohesive way completely parted. And it was like, and that, not just the cloud of disarray from that weekend, but the one that had built up over the last several weeks as we were getting out of the lease and I'm trying to figure out how we're going to make a gym work. That completely parted, and I could see not just where we were, but I could see like the finish line of where we wanted to go, like outrageously clearly.
Yeah, and one of the things for sure, like in the leading up to going to that event, when you were like, okay, for the gym we have to have like this many members by this point, the rent for the gym space is this, we don't get out of it, like how much square footage do we need, you're working through all that stuff. Because I'll never forget one of your lines. We were downstairs in the living room, and you're like, "We are not losing this house."
Yep.
That was your biggest concern. Like you were trying to make this gym work in order for us to keep the houses.
Yep.
Because you said that quote verbatim. Yep. We're not losing this house.
That's right.
And I was like,
said that.
Okay.
I've said it to myself more times than I said it to you. I'll tell you that.
For sure.
And that was a prestige move.
Yeah,
it had nothing.
It was an ego move too.
It was a massive ego move because that's what prestige is.
Yeah,
prestige is based on ego, and that's why it can't be number one.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to allow it to be number one.
Yeah. What's your number one now?
Number one is growth and contribution. I'm not even joking about that. Growth and contribution.
So they're tied.
Number 2.
Okay, number one, number 2.
Yeah,
okay.
For me. And like love is obviously important to me too, but like I believe that if I live my life based on growth and contribution, that everything else will come back to me that I want.
Yeah.
And like the fact that we sell these houses is going to be like a
relief.
Like no, it will be a relief in the short term, to some extent. But I think like 10 years from now, we're going to look back and we're going to go like, we thought that selling those houses was like a bad decision, or like a scary decision.
Yeah.
And like it was without a doubt the absolute right one. Just like getting out of the lease, like just like we thought that was a scary decision, but like it feels like the right thing. I can now see the vision clearly, And it
Make decisions.
I can make better, more
Yeah.
clear-headed decisions as a result of it. So like, how can that be the wrong decision? It can't be.
Yeah.
Literally can't be. So that is how that conversation went. I was surprised with myself to hear it, but I had already, because I had all these thoughts already, it was like very okay for me to, I accepted it pretty quickly, because I knew that like anything otherwise was a prestige issue. And one of the other things I'll just say really quick before we get to the next point is that one of the reasons why I was okay with that was because a lot of like attention is paid to like being grateful these days and gratitude and writing in a gratitude journal or showing gratitude one way or another as a practice. And I've been doing that for quite a while now, on a daily basis, literally for years, probably maybe for over a decade, even though I didn't really know that's what I was doing at a certain point. In the last several years, it's become like a very specific practice that I perform. I think doing it as a daily practice is one thing, but I've really done my absolute best over the last several years. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes, or you don't even have to try. But I've made it as much as possible to embody gratitude, literally in every moment of my life, as much as I can. Being grateful for what you have, for the moment that you're in, regardless of how like shitty it might seem at the time. Trying to understand that it is, even if it doesn't seem great, it's serving a better purpose. It's happening for a reason to some extent. And like the more grateful you are, the less you even have to like convince yourself of that. You're just like, yeah, so everything's good.
Yeah.
It's all good. And because I've been more grateful, I've realized that it's the stuff that's like in the house that's important. It's you, it's the dogs, it's like us snuggling on the couch, or us playing with the dogs, or hanging out in the backyard, or grilling and having our like steak with our plants and like our like, you know, having our like steak and potatoes on a Friday night, and like smoking a joint or taking gummies or whatever. Like, that's what I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
The house is just like
Just
holding
the shell.
stuff.
Yeah.
It's not, and I love all this. I love all the stuff that's in our house too, and that's coming with us too. But it's like, it's all the other stuff is actually what's important, and that is what allowed me to go, we don't need the house. Like, the important shit comes with us. But I would say that you didn't necessarily have that same outlook from the beginning.
No. You said that on the walk, and this is again after, like, I'm waiting in like suspense. I'm like, he's got to figure it out. We get the gym to work. All's gonna be great. Like, this is gonna be good. And you go, we have to sell the houses. And I don't think I said anything right away. I think I was silent.
Yeah, you may have said something, but it was like nothing of substance. I can promise you that. It was probably just like okay, that might be.
Maybe, but like, I was a complete bred when it came to that. Anytime you tried to talk about it for like that entire week after, I didn't want to like be part of the conversation. I was like, nope. I get like teary-eyed talking about it. Like, that one of the first like thoughts, feelings was definitely like a fear, and kind of like a fuck, like, did we fail kind of feeling of like what people would think. Like, we're going from owning 2 homes to being like now renting, and not saying like that's a failure on anyone's part, but for me it was like, we built a life, we did all this stuff, we worked super hard. We have 2 houses here in Austin, which everyone's moving to, and it's a great city. And I was like, fuck, like, I can't believe I have to go back to renting. Like, we failed. That was like my mind. And then on top of that, so I get like through that like mental, emotional thing that I'm going through. And of course, I don't like to talk so much about my emotions with you. I'm going through that in my head by myself. And then I get to, now I'm sad. Now I feel like, again, a brat. I feel bad. I feel like, how can I like be feeling this way when you're working through like everything that you're doing and putting in all this hard work and trying to work through it yourself? I felt like, wow, like, I'm not being like a good partner for you. So then like that made me also feel just like, again, just all in my sadness and all in my fears, and all like nothing was coming from love. It was dark feelings.
I passed my cloud of disarray out to her by bringing this up, and like I didn't really know exactly like what your reaction would be. I didn't know it was necessarily going to be like that aggressive, I guess, or like that bad. And the thing with you is that when you get upset, it's not always like a raging fire of anger. It's a very apparent under the surface, quiet, like smoldering anger that everybody else in the room can pick up on, even though you're not necessarily yelling and screaming. And that's another thing that
got a power.
She's got a magic power where like her energy is like palpable, like and it's hard. It was hard to like get you to open up. A week, I had to basically like pry you open. Because you wouldn't have the conversation.
I wouldn't.
And I was saying this isn't going to get better until we do have the conversation. And I had to like pin you down a couple times, not physically, but otherwise.
But yeah, I was like I was very sad. Like anytime you brought it up, and again, it was the feeling of like losing everything.
Yeah.
Like I thought like the houses was everything.
Yeah.
Or were everything.
And I'll just say really quick, like I obviously understood the idea of like other people not viewing it that way, or other people viewing it like as us being failures. I understood that other people might view us as being failures because we're selling the house. But for me, I knew that it was the way that we get to where we're going.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
and I couldn't see through the forest.
Keeping the houses is the wrong move because then you're putting yourself in a predicament. Mm-hmm. Selling them is the move that gives us the freedom to do whatever we want. That's the reality. Is what it's doing is it's making us more free to actually have like latitude to do what we want to do to get to where we want to be with this business.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to like really, again, work through that and communication and talking with you, and it all starts with like me communicating with myself. Like I had to go through like all those emotions like by myself. Again, fear, sadness. Then like I felt like such like a bad partner to you because I was like, Jared's doing all this like work and trying to work everything out and trying to make the best life for us, and here I am like kicking and screaming, like heels like in the dirt, being like, I'm not doing this, and I was so resistant. And then we talked, and you said exactly what you said before, where you're like, all this stuff in the house, all of this like that's all coming with us. The house is not like, it's not who we are. We need to get rid of this to get to the next level and step back.
And that probably happened over the course of like 3 or 4 conversations over the course of like maybe a week.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like we had to stop some of the conversations because I would be like, I can't talk anymore about this because like my stomach would turn. Like I felt sick talking about it.
Yeah.
Like a little spoiled brat.
So then like what happened? What changed in you that made you get past it? And then like where are you today?
So I had to again hold up that mirror and like really look at myself and be like, why am I acting this way? What is the reason why? And I had to answer those questions as far as like, I see like these like getting rid of the houses, like that's okay. It's not gonna, it's for a short time and we'll rent, build everything back up and get to something bigger, better, and fantastic. Like I can't wait to see where it goes. But it was the conversations with you and just knowing like this is the right decision. And now again, like I can't wait. Yeah. Can't wait to purge. I can't wait to sell the houses. Like I'm in like full on like ready to just get rid of material things because like it just does not matter.
Yep. And thank you, Tony Robbins, for that revelation.
Thank you, Uncle Tony.
Thank you, Tony Robbins, for, I mean, I guess like the point here being that like in the last year and a half, by the time we sell these houses, because we're planning on selling these houses in the next couple months probably. So that will mean that like by this summer, like in the last year and a half, we went from 3 houses, because we had one up in New Jersey that we also sold last year.
Yeah.
So in a year and a half, we'll have gone through 3 houses to 0 houses, and from opening a gym to not opening a gym.
Yeah.
or at least like no gym plans just yet.
Yeah.
Which is obviously not ideal, and it makes sense that you would be upset about something like that. It would make sense that it would take you some time to come to that realization, or like to come to peace with that. Like, it should take you a little bit of time to come to peace with that. It was something that I was working through for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that like that day the answer came to me, but it's because I was like thinking about it for so long.
And for me, it was like, yeah, we're going to like, we're doing this, we're building a gym. We're like, cause you were always like behind the scenes, like thinking everything through, where I was just like, yeah, like, all right, like Jared's got the plan. We've got like, he's got this. I'm like, I'm good. And then again, that all happened, and me realizing like, all right, I need to step up. I need to be a better partner and be like supportive of this, even though it's a very scary, big leap. Like, I had to be like, okay, like, it also makes the most absolute sense.
And to be clear, like, you've been supportive, and you've supported a lot of big leaps over the years. Going to law school and supporting me. Moving down to Austin without a job. Me leaving.
Which was my idea.
I know it was your idea, but like, we did it, and like we were both supportive of each other, and like that risky decision. Then of course, like, me leaving my job to start a gym, and then getting out of a lease, and now we don't have a gym, and it's like, you supported me along the way. So I don't think that it makes you a bad partner that it took you a week to say that you were comfortable selling both of our homes and going back to renting. I don't think that's like something that you should feel bad about.
You know, but I just didn't feel like as supportive.
I guess.
I shouldn't have been.
Well, I think we're at a place now where we're both on the absolute same page, more on the same page than we've ever been about anything. We both see the vision incredibly clearly. We both have the same vision, and we're also at a point where like you're coming up with as many like really valuable, useful ideas as I feel like I have over the last couple of years, and I think there's nothing more supportive than that. So I love you, and I really appreciate everything.
I love you.
Cool. I think we're at about time.
Oh, all right.
So I guess next time we'll maybe dive into a little bit more about like, okay, so now that we're selling the houses, like,
and we're free.
We've
got all the monies.
And we're free from the matrix.
That's my 9 to 5.
I guess you're 9 to 5. If that's our one tie to the matrix, I'm fine.
I'm good with my 9 to 5.
Being our one tie to the matrix is a pretty good tie to the matrix. So next time, maybe we'll talk a little bit more about like what our plan is for the gym moving forward,
and where you're at, kind of what
both of us have going on from a like career perspective, because I've been again self-employed for a month and a half now, and it has been an awesome month and a half with a lot of really great traction, and I've been having a lot of fun, incredibly busy, but a lot of fun. So
making great connections. So
absolutely,
really good.
So hopefully we'll get to that next time.
For sure we will.
All right.
Bye for now.
See ya.